Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in. Today, we're taking an incredibly fascinating look at how games, specifically heavy hitters like Roblox and Minecraft, actually shape a child's development, their habits, and their everyday lives. We're going to bypass the usual panic and build a really wholesome, clear understanding of what's literally happening inside a kid's brain and routine. Okay, let's dive right in. You know, whenever adults start talking about video games, we almost always jump straight to the exact same questions. We ask, is it good? Is it bad? Or is it just way too much? But honestly, those are completely flawed questions. When we try to slap a simple verdict on it like that, we totally miss the actual mechanisms at play. We really need a massive paradigm shift in how we look at these digital environments.
And that brings us to this absolutely crucial point. Game time is not a moral label, it is a developmental force. I really want that to be our anchor for this entire explainer. Games aren't just passive entertainment. They are incredibly active environments. And environments, as we know, shape habits way more effectively than rules ever could.
Section 1. Beyond good and bad. Asking the right questions. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to contrast our old mindset with our new one. The old way is asking, does gaming affect children? Well, yeah, obviously it does. Or we get totally bogged down in exactly how many hours are they playing. But a far, far better question is, what part of this child's life is being changed, strengthened, or crowded out? Shifting to that specific question, that's where the real understanding actually begins. To picture this, think of game time like this big, old, carved wooden door. From the outside, which is the screen time itself, it just looks like one solid, flat object. But if you look a little closer, you start noticing the moving parts, right? The hinges, the locks, the panels. A child's game time works exactly the same way. The raw hours spent, that's just the outside of the door. What really matters are those hidden mechanisms operating right behind the screen.
Section 2. The 6 hidden levers. What games actually change. Let's break down the fundamental ways these games are altering a child's psychology. The very first lever is attention. Games are basically masterclasses in holding focus. They use super quick feedback and constant movement. Think of a child's attention kind of like a flashlight. Games make that beam incredibly bright, but it has to move in these really quick, erratic bursts. So when that same kid sits down to do a slow, steady task, like reading a book or doing math homework, it feels literally exhausting. It's not that they have zero attention span. It's just that their attention has been heavily trained for a completely different environment.
Okay, our second lever is reward expectation. In the real world, effort takes a long time to pay off. But in a game, the feedback loop is unbelievably fast. You try, you see a result, you try again. It's exactly like eating sugary snacks right before a big meal. Sugar isn't inherently evil, but it completely changes what the body craves next. In the same way, frequent digital wins can make ordinary, slower real-life tasks feel deeply unrewarding by comparison.
Our third lever is emotional regulation. Games are highly emotional spaces. They're packed with joy, tension, and yes, failure. Think of these emotions like a muscle. Balanced game challenges can actually strengthen a child's ability to tolerate frustration. But if the game is the only place a child feels powerful or safe, that muscle gets put under immense strain. When the game shuts off, the child might crash or lash out simply because their emotional stability is tied way too tightly to that digital world.
If we pull back and look at the big picture here, we see games are also shaping social habits, like how kids cooperate or compete with each other. They shape self-control, meaning how easily a kid can actually stop playing when the game is practically begging them to stay for just one more reward. And they shape identity. Does a child see themselves as a brilliant master builder, or are they only confident when they're online? All these levers blend together to form the child's actual developmental experience.
Moving on to Section 3, Habits over Single Events, Carving the Path. Let's look at how all this theory actually shows up in daily life. Because, spoiler alert, the effects rarely announce themselves with one giant dramatic event.
Think of game effects like water wearing a path into the soil. A single drop, or even one super long Saturday gaming binge, doesn't really change much on its own, but repeated flow, that quietly carves a deep channel over time. The habits are built silently, across days and weeks, and that is exactly why adults so often miss the subtle changes until they've morphed into fully entrenched routines.
So here's how that channel gets carved into a problematic loop. Step 1. A kid is tired or stressed. Step 2. The game feels significantly easier and way more rewarding than real life. Step 3. Real-life tasks, like chores or homework, get pushed back. And finally, step 4, the game completely stops being just for fun and turns into a very predictable avoidance tool. Once a game is used to escape hard feelings, well, it becomes much, much harder to regulate. Section 4, the hidden signal, checking the hinges. So how do we actually spot this happening? We look at the transitions.
This is a massive takeaway for anyone trying to understand a child's habits. Real-life effects are often hinge effects. They show up where one part of the day has to connect to another. Remember our door metaphor? The outside of the door might look perfectly fine while they're playing, but the hinge? That is where you're going to notice the strain.
You really want to watch those specific moments when a child has to shift gears, from gaming to homework, gaming to bedtime, gaming to family dinner, or just being asked to put the controller down altogether. A child who can pause easily is showing flexibility, but a child who fights tooth and nail at every single transition, they're giving you a huge signal. They're showing you that the game's reward loop is incredibly tight right now, and that ordinary, everyday life currently feels a lot less compelling to their nervous system. Which brings us to Section 5, support, compete, or replace, the real continuum. Instead of falling into a total moral panic, we can use this deeply practical framework to judge what role a game is actually playing.
Here is that continuum in action. First, is the game supporting the child's development, fitting in nicely alongside school and sleep? Or is it competing, causing noticeable friction and tension with their daily routines and responsibilities? Or is it replacing parts of childhood entirely, essentially becoming their primary source of pleasure, control, and escape? This is how you gain real clarity. You aren't just guessing anymore. You're evaluating the behavior logically. By looking at those hidden levers, attention, emotion, reward, and by keeping a close eye on those daily transitions, we can finally move away from fear and step into real understanding. So I'm going to leave you with this single, totally provocative question to ask yourself the next time you see a child log on. What place does this game have in this child's life right now? Answer that and you will know exactly what to do next. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the better questions.